To what extent is the Chinese government using Falun Gong prisoners as sources of organ mining or organ donation?
Organ harvesting has been happening for the last 5 years. And if you look at the record of the organ harvesting record in China, between the year of 1995 to 1999, there were about 16,000 transplantation operations in China. But between the year of 2001 and 2005, there were 60,000 transplantation operations. And this is like, more than triple. It's almost like 4 times difference. And that's a huge jump. And we have, conversations between the doctors and those so-to-be recipients. They called from abroad asking about the conditions of those donors. And, those doctors admitted that, they are from Falun Gong practitioners because they're young and healthy. The organs are good, are fresh. Just like you sell things in the market. This product is very good. It's good for you. Why not buy it? And we have, a conversation records, over the phone, and we also have, record of those, advertisements made by those transplantation centers. They say that this is like a new era of the transplantation because you can get a kidney or things like that in a week in our center. But we know in America, you would wait for 3 years or even longer for a kidney because there are not that many donors, right? But in China, you have this kind of, speed. So that means, there must be a huge pool of these donors behind the scene. They can get those organs anytime they want. They have all those data available, like what blood type, HLA type, that kind of things. If a patient comes, then you can, just do the match right away. So that's how they operate. So that's, they have become a very systematic way to do that. So it's extremely, horrifying. And also there was a report made by the David Kilgo and David Maters from Canada. None of them are Falun Gong practitioners. One of them are a former parliamentary members of Canada. They're lawyers. They have collected all those evidence and pieced them together, showing that all these things happened in the 5 years is true. There are enough evidence supporting this.
So what is the response of the Chinese government to this charge of organ harvesting?
Well, that's very interesting. What happened was on March 9th, these witnesses, the reporter and the nurse, they came out and make the statement about this organ harvesting happening in China. And the Chinese government did not say anything until 3 weeks later. They said that's not true. And they invited reporters from AP and another French media, and also they invited the American embassy from Beijing to go to Sujiatun, which is located in a northeast part of China, to take a tour at that site. And then they find nothing, showing that organ harvesting happened.
That was the prison where it was happening.
Oh yeah, that's not prison. Actually, it's a hospital.
Oh, hospital.
And there's underground facility. Those Falun Gong practitioners were kept. And the American State Department made a statement saying that they did not find anything showing that organ harvesting happened. That reminds me what happened in World War II. The Nazi Germany, the Hitler invited foreign medium to visit those concentration camps for those Jews. And those people, were living happily in the concentration camps. There were deers running around, flowers all over the places. That's the exact same thing. Imagine 3 weeks passed before they invite those people to make a tour, and what can they do in 3 weeks? This is the trick they play all the time, and unfortunately, the U.S. government has fallen into this trap.
They don't challenge it.
No, they didn't. So that is one of those tragic things happening in these days. When the communists tell lies, people don't just try to challenge it; they just accept it as it is.
Charles, let's go back and make sure we've covered all of the points of your personal experience in prison there. I know there's so much that you could talk about, but what's your overall impression as you look back on it. What is your impression of that period?
It was extremely, extremely hard. You know, I feel like I was truly in hell. Because for a lot of American people, they don't have a clue, you know, what could be like in Chinese communist prison, what kind of dirty people they encounter, you know, in daily life. All those, you know, 24 hours a day, you know, you have to be with them all the time. They play all those dirty tricks on you. They do this torture on you. I don't regard you as a person. They try to make you feel like you're dirt, you're nothing, you're nobody. You have to give up your self-respect, self-esteem to live in that place. Can you imagine that people can fight against each other in just for, you know, a cup of water? Use all that kind of dirty tricks, you know, vicious and fierce ones. It's really, you know, like hell. It's But I'm lucky now. I'm very lucky because then I got this much attention, you know, from the outside world, so I could pull through this stage.
You have said that you felt that the regime in China, the communist regime, was very similar to the Nazis. What do you mean by that?
Well, actually, to my understanding, actually, it's even worse than the Nazis. Of course, I'm not saying the Nazis are good or something like that, but what the Chinese Communist Party has been doing is, you know, look at the numbers. You know, if we just look at the numbers, 80 million people in China died because of that regime. It's more than all the abnormal, you know, deaths in Chinese history, 5,000 years of history, and it's more than, you know, any other country put together, you know, for like a Nazi-like regime, you know, that kind of things. In the World War II, we had only like 40 million people died. But in China, that's like in peaceful time. There's no war, you know, against any other countries inside China, but 80 million people died. In the Big Famine alone, during the year of 1959 to 1961, 40 million people died of starvation, because the Chinese Communist Party had a kind of crazy economic policy of great leap forward. They want to catch the America in 15 years. So they ordered those farmers to make steers, you know, not instead of farming. So the farm, you know, the grains all rotted. And then finally nobody would have anything to eat. And still they had made all these kind of false numbers, how much they produce, you know, on those, you know, countryside. And then they had to, all those farmers had to pay the government everything they had. So there would be nothing left for them to eat. So people just died of starvation. And what makes things worse was that those poor farmers were not allowed to get out of the villages to beg for food, because the Communist Party said that would damage the party's image. So if they try to get out, they would be like shot to death. So many people just died in villages like that. 40 million in 3 years. And look at the Cultural Revolution, and look at the crackdown on the killings, massacres in Tiananmen Square. And now the Falun Gong practitioners, tens of millions of people, you know, cannot practice what they want. They were forced to give up. If they refuse, they'll be tortured to death. All that kind of things. So, and also they have so many, you know, brainwash methods. And they use family members to fight each other. So they make people like live like in hell, miserably. So if you look at the Nazi Germany, of course they have done all bad things, killing people randomly. But in China, it's much worse. It's lasted much longer, and people suffered much more. And like, you know, people live like nobody. They don't have a self-respect. They don't have, you know, confidence. They cannot say anything they want to. They only can repeat what the party says.